It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Diane Urban. She is a licensed psychologist who's devoted to helping individuals, couples, and families improve their relationships so that they can experience joy. She has taught at graduate and undergraduate levels for over 40 years. You don't look old enough to do that.
Thank you.
In December, she will be married for 45 years. Congratulations for that. She
Thank
has
you.
two grown children and a grandchild on the way. Has it arrived yet?
No, but we are actually waiting today. So we're on pins and needles.
Congratulations that your article titled Five Keys to a Happy Lasting Marriage was recently published in Authority magazine. Now, some people think monogamy is old-fashioned, even impossible. What do
Yes.
you believe?
I believe it is the way we are meant to be. And I think that when we connect with someone who understands us and wants us to grow along with them, the whole experience feels like a new thing every day. And it's exciting and it's wonderful. And it saddens me to think that people see it the other way.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. It makes me sad for what they are missing,
Yes.
not being in a committed, faithful relationship.
Hmm.
Change is such a part of our lives and therefore a part of marriage. Why are so many people afraid of the changes that take place in a marriage over time?
Uh, I think that they're afraid of change for many reasons. One is that I think from early childhood, Americans are taught go in a straight line. You know, I was once at a PTA meeting where I was going to speak for 5-year-olds, and they were talking about putting a journal for them to write their goal of the week. And I thought, at five, I had a 5-minute goal, not a goal for a week or a year or a month. And I think, as a college professor, I see the same thing. There's so many students saying, now that I've had this experience, I would like to look at this career, but I can't because I already took courses in this. And then I think by the time they get to a relationship outside of their own self, right? uh, They're afraid that if they change or the other person changes, the whole thing will fall apart. And what they're missing is that we are changing from the moment we are born, if not before, right? Transformation, growth, it's what happens. And even changes that are painful for us, when we look back on them, they always represent growth. So it's not to be feared, it's to be embraced.
I love to hear you say this. And I also love that you said, and I'm quoting, we need to focus on seeing each other on ordinary days. What does seeing each other look like for you and your husband?
I think the longer I'm married, I have said to him a number of times, if I imagine him when he's not here, I still see that 20-something-year-old guy that I fell in love with, right? And sometimes I'm surprised, and I'm sure he's surprised when he looks in the mirror or looks at me and goes, "Whoa, like who is she?" But but I think seeing the person is seeing all of the memories as well as who they are now, how they became to be this person. And if we want to acknowledge that we have changed, right? And we want the person to see that change and embrace it in us, we need to keep open-minded about what's changing in them for good and perhaps things that might irritate us more or even frighten us. And we need to explain those things and say it out loud instead of, again, being so afraid that if we say something, it will make it worse. Usually it makes it better.
Usually it makes it better.
Mm.
I think that, acknowledging change and adjusting together as a couple, adjusting to change is part of the journey of marriage.
Oh, you are so right. Yes. But again, I think so many people, like, even my daughter with all of her friends having children right now, the fear I hear in them is like, how is this going to change my life? As opposed to it's another phase of life. And the changes might be difficult on days, but the joys will be so wonderful. It just adds, you know. Another thing I like to say is love is like rice, you know, you add the water and it just keeps growing. So like adding another person to your family is not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. Um,
I heard it.
so
I heard a therapist say recently, whom I interviewed, he said when you have a baby, it's like three new people enter the relationship.
oh,
Isn't
that's wonderful. Oh
it true?
yes.
Like the father is new as a father, the mother is new
Yes.
as a mother.
Hmm.
Everybody is challenged to grow.
Yeah. Yes. And
When,
we see each other differently. That's what I mean by see,
yeah,
right? You know, now you will see this person in such a new way.
so
Yeah.
true. And of
Yeah.
course, children, we see them in a new phase almost
Mhm.
every week. You know, everything's changing.
Yes.
Monotony and taking each other for granted is often the death knell of a marriage. You
Yeah.
emphasize the need for fun.
Hmm.
Okay, tell me how you and your husband have fun.
Have
How do you
fun. Okay.
introduce fun into the relationship?
Okay. I'll give an example from COVID, okay, where it was way more difficult. And I think he had just retired and there were a lot of changes going on with that. And we had plans to go to a baseball game. And we weren't going, of course, but I didn't know what he was doing all morning. But he came out and he had printed tickets as if we were at the game.
Oh,
And he went in the attic and found, you know, like different things that we had done at different baseball games and old t-shirts that we had from teams. And we just had so much fun. It was playful. We
oh,
made popcorn, right? We had hot dogs. It was as if we were there. Um, on an ordinary day, you know, playfulness can be doing a crossword puzzle together, or you know, we'll compete sometimes. You know, how many steps do you have? You know,
yeah.
I'm not telling you because I want to win, or you know, not to outdo each other, but to motivate each other, and just to, you know, remember the kid in us is always there. You know, we don't have to be serious in every conversation.
It sounds like you've been keeping your courtship alive all
Oh,
these years.
I do think so, you know, and he makes me laugh. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. He does make me laugh. And he's a CPA, so you know, that's kind of uncharacteristic too, but he was a cartoonist as well. You know, when you see again like the different sides of people, it's a joy.
Laughter is such an important part of
Yeah.
a healthy relationship, isn't it?
Yes.
There are many, many ways to damage trust in a marriage. When trust is broken, it needs to be rebuilt. How do
Yeah.
you help couples rebuild trust in each other after there's been a, a break of trust?
Hmm. Well, you know, there's so many aspects to a breaking in trust.
Yes.
And you know, part of it is in the person who feels the trust was broken because it goes to their self-worth, and their reaction to it can be greater than the actual fact of the situation. That's
Yes.
one piece that has to be dealt with. Um, Another is I always try to put it in the context of their whole life. If a trust is broken so early in the relationship that there's nothing you can build on from there, that's a red flag.
Mhm.
And the techniques for building trust are different. You know, you need to really talk about your core values and where you expect this to go in the future. If a breaking in trust has happened after months or years of relationships, which is what I find in counseling, that's often when it happens, right? It's like years of marriage and something has broken the trust. Then I try to first make it very concrete and say, let's look at this in the totality. And sometimes I'll start with how many years together, how many days, how many minutes, how many hours of waking time, right? How many hours did this hurt include? And
Yes.
it's a blip if you look at it that way. And then we try to examine each person's part in it because it's never one person cheated.
Yes.
What was missing? What were they looking for? And if we open our minds to that, then we address the fear we both have, right? I was afraid to ask why he was unhappy, or I was afraid to ask why she didn't seem, interested in me anymore. And then
Right.
instead of looking for the answer in each other, we look outside.
Yes. Such a great answer, Diane.
Right. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And it's so rewarding when a couple is willing to see it that way. And
Yes.
and then you feel that, okay, we can move on from this, because forgiveness is a big part of our life as well.
Yes.
Forgiving ourselves and forgiving each other.
You're so right. I really appreciate the way you answered this question.
Oh, thank you.
You caution couples against the use of you accusation, the finger
Mm,
pointing at you. How
mm.
do you teach couples to speak without accusations?
Okay, well, first of all, I admit to them that I sometimes do that as well, right?
It's
These
so,
are guidelines.
it's
I mean,
so common.
I'm sure in 45 years I said the word you more than once, right? So when we do that, we have to then acknowledge to my first response is not always my best, right? So I was upset in this moment. I was frustrated. I approached it incorrectly, and we had an argument, right?
Um,
We are always able to step back from there and say, what I meant to say was, right? I had a very long day today, and I thought you understood you were making dinner, right? And then the other person becomes more willing to say, oh, I'm sorry, or, oh, I didn't realize that. Or maybe I need to learn. I didn't actually say that, did I? I said, I'm busy today. And then I was waiting for him to think about what would make me happy. And so many couples, again, think if I ask, it doesn't mean as much. And I think it means more. If I actually said, can you make dinner? And he made dinner, thank you. If I
yes,
said, can you make dinner? And he didn't make dinner, and he didn't order dinner, right? Or find some way to feed us, that is a very different problem.
yes.
And we need to understand what are we doing and what is the message we're really receiving.
How we deliver our messages, it makes all the difference in the world in how they are
Yes.
received.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. And with couples, sometimes I practiced the various ways we can say I love you, because that's such a fun thing to say, but boy, you can say it as as if you're cursing at the person almost, right? And the tone really changes things as well.
Yep,
So if we fall into the you, but we say it in a sweeter way, it's not as hurtful.
right.
Um, mhm.
One of your 5 keys is to share. Please expand on that. And you listed several things that you
Uh-huh.
recommend that they share.
Yes, and various people have different, like, I don't share my food, or I don't, right? But I think my idea of sharing actually came from my father. And when we were children, I have a sibling, and he would say to us all the time, I cut, you choose. I think, and he said that always it always makes it fair, right? Because and I didn't understand it clearly as a child, but I was like, that's a great
Yeah,
concept. But sharing is so important. I think when couples start out saying, this is mine and this is yours, this is my bill, this is your bill, then you're not really joining as a couple. You're not making a family of two or more. You're making two individuals who are roommates, and you're not allowing yourself the vulnerability of depending on each other,
yes.
because that's where sharing takes us. Sometimes in my career, I've been able to feel, oh, I'm earning a decent income. And sometimes that's not the case, right? When I was in school, certainly it wasn't the case. So we have to be able to say, I depend on you and I'm comfortable. I trust you. And then when we're sharing, it's like, okay, he retired. Maybe I can contribute a little more right now. And he has to be comfortable with that. But if
Yes.
we've never shared the little things, and again, I've seen couples saying, these are my cookies. And I'm like, oh my, you know, no, it's not, we're not meant to be that way. We're meant to be helpful to each other. And when we as a couple have a feeling of sharing, I think it then naturally trickles down to any children that we have. And when I say children, it could be nieces and nephews, like the extended people that you touch. How do you behave in front of them? And what values are you eager to see them live and create in themselves?
You are mentoring any children around you,
Oh, yes.
especially your own
Yes.
children. You're teaching them about marriage by
Yes.
example.
Yes. And then I think, it's sharing is interesting because I also think we have to remember there are some things we absolutely don't share, right? And those have to be expressed also to the other person, right? Like, so, and that didn't occur to me until I was much older. One of my daughter's friends said, can I try on your wedding ring? And I was like, No. And then I thought, isn't that the same thing as when they say, to each other, can I hold your doll? Or can I have it? Because that thing has value to them.
Yes.
So it becomes that conversation of why am I unwilling to share it? Is it because I'm afraid it will break or that you won't be as careful with it? Or, what's the underneath? Because most things can, in fact, be shared. Cars and rings and all kinds of small and big things,
Sharing is an aspect of being partners, isn't it?
isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
I absolutely love your no complaining rule. Would you
Oh,
describe that? Would you describe that?
that again, it started as a family event because we would go on vacation and we would like to take these long car rides with kids, and kids don't always like long car rides as it is. So it started with that, like we're going to listen to, this amount of music of you and this amount of music, and then as they got older, it became we're going on vacation. Mom and dad are planning this many days of vacation. And then you get to plan within the context, right, of a day. So my son might say, "Oh, I want to go see, this baseball team." And I remember once my daughter said, "I want to go to American Dolls." Where you have lunch with them and you sit and have these little mini sandwiches, and it was the same vacation. And that's where the no complaining rule was born, because my son was probably around 12, and sitting in that restaurant was probably the most difficult thing he had ever done in his life, right?
Sure.
And for her, she really was bored by the baseball game.
Yeah.
But when you look at it and you say, where does that take us as adults, right? It takes us back to that place of saying, the only fun I had in this was watching you have fun.
Yeah.
And that is joyful too. And it's not something we're going to do every single day. It's just that we don't have to make the other person's life torturous either. And we don't have to be, I'm not doing that with you. It's not, everything is not about proving a point. It's
Yeah.
just, it
Well,
was fun, right? That's it. It's fun for someone.
it's not always about getting my way all of the time.
Yes. 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 And you might even be exposed to something you actually like.
Uh-huh.
Right. I mean, now my daughter goes to more baseball games than my son does, I think. I'm like, how did that happen? So, yes.
You mentioned how impactful Carl Rogers' concept of unconditional positive regard was.
Mhm.
How do you apply that when you're upset with your child or your husband? How is that a framework for
Mhm.
your relationships?
It, it, it's part of that hesitancy in using the word you, because what Rogers is always telling us is focus on the behavior. I don't like what you did, or what you did hurt my feelings, or what you did had terrible consequences for you and or others, right? Or I fear those consequences. You can't jump on the couch, right? It's a you word, because you might get hurt.
Mhm.
But it's on the behavior. It's not the same thing as saying you're a bad boy or girl.
Right, right.
You are a bad partner because you don't understand me, right? The focus is very different. It's on the behavior, and more importantly, I think to some extent, is his desire to make us say, what do we need and want
Mhm.
versus you should, right?
That's,
And honestly, like, if I go to the doctor and the doctor says to me, you should lose weight, I'm like, "Ugh," right? But if she says, I want you to lose weight, it's engaging, right? Why do you want me to lose weight? You want me to live a long life? Oh, okay. I think I'm in this with you, right? But a should just invokes guilt, and there's nothing forward from that. So those two things in his unconditional positive regard have really impacted me, personally, professionally. And again, we fall down on it. I use the word should. My students will point it out quite often. They're good for that, but but that's okay, because at the end of the day, we need to reflect back and say, did I need it or did I want it? They should study because I want them to succeed. Why do I want them to succeed? You just keep peeling it, right?
yeah,
Because the world needs good psychologists out there, and the world needs people who are helping others. So I do want that for you, right?
you are
And I
bringing
also want to be a good teacher, whatever that means.
any given day.
Right, right.
You want people that are bringing empathy into the world rather than judgment.
Yes, yes.
I can
Like
really,
yourself, right? That's, yes, it's so important.
well, I'm kind of reading the vibe from you, and I think that's what you're bringing into the world. So let's tell me a bit about the life balance movement you'd like to start.
Well, life balance, because again, I hear this all the time, how so many hours I have to work and there's so much to do and we need life balance. And that leads people to think that there's work over here. And then on the other side of this is my family, my friends, my health, my joys, everything else is over here. And somehow all those things, because that's a way bigger list than work, right,
Yeah,
are supposed to somehow balance. And I'm like, that's already an imbalance. So we have to relook at that and say, the balance we're looking for is balance in our life. And work is a part of that. And our family is a part of that. And to pretend that it is separate only causes psychological damage and stress for all of us. Right?
hmm,
Because we're at work and we have legitimate things to worry about, maybe elderly parents or a child who's not 100% well, right? And we're supposed to just leave that home because we're at work? What?
yeah,
We can't do that any more than people like you and me can leave our work completely behind.
hmm,
Concerns come with us and they impact our family as well. Why are you so quiet? Or, what's on your mind? It needs to be really understood very differently. And then I think that will lead to a much more family friendly country than we have now.
I I like the concept a lot, and I support your
Thank you.
um, launch this in our world. For those of you who are watching this video with Dr. Diane Urban, you can subscribe to her blog. It's called real-matters.com, or find her on Instagram at Dr. Diane Urban. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and kind of amplifying what you had to say in your article. I also recommend those of you who are watching this to go to Authority Magazine and look up her article called 5 Tips. What is it? 5
For a happy and lasting marriage.
Happy and Lasting Marriage, Dr. Diane Urban. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I really appreciate this, and it was a pleasure talking with you.
Well,
Thank
my
you.
privilege. I hope we have a chance to meet face to face in person someday.
Oh, that would be so wonderful. Okay. Have a good day. All right. Bye.
Bye bye.